Real people, inspiring stories, living legends. Award-winning talk show. Trevor Blackman Now.
To love is to be happier than in being loved. So you probably chose it for love. It doesn't run that way. When you hear the poem, it runs a different way. I don't think you've heard that one. It runs like a poet would write the poem. I once swam in stunning reefs beneath the waves. Specks of red, orange, and bright blue-green corals glimmered within a seabed of aquamarine waters, while I banqueted with the oysters and pearls on the ocean's flow. Above were the fierce winds and turbulent tides, but here in these floral robes of bewitching beauty, all was tranquil, majestically elevating, and serenely peaceful. Well, there is love there. It was here I first felt peace as the source of supernal splendor, knew that to love was happier than in being loved. Alas, in my ignorance, one day I saw a most beautiful alien fish and was subsequently lured from freedom into a fisherman's net of sorrows, pain, isolation, and suffering. I was born with human intuition, acquired from my parents' previous life experiences. They told me stories of the glories of Africa, of the opulence of its people and assets, its Ubuntu, Umoja, and Amani, of harmony before the invaders came, ransacking the villages, robbing them of the glittering gold and diamonds. They weaved tales like those told by griots, of stolen gems and freedoms, of betrayals by those with forked tongues, of Wazungu who created heinous weaponry for the purposes of subjugation, enslavement, and exploitation. Mom told of how my ancestors died in millions on boisterous seas, in strange vessels and cesspits of nearly 600 years of struggle, hanging on the precipice of darkness, the thread of a golden hope, the only means of survival in many alien lands. Now I remember, trapped in this fisherman's net of sorrows, I feel a fear, loneliness, and insecurity, a kind of disparity and segregation not so dissimilar to my parents' stories. With this mesh my ghetto or slum of sorts. I'm in a tin can of sardines. Mom told tales of the rape of ugliness, ushering innocent souls to Hades before they even got to paradise, while the predators gathered like friends, accustomed to the icy chill of callousness, the emptiness of pallbearers at funeral marches, calling out to the gates of heaven. I tried to sing, like my mother had taught me how, of the ancient Negro spirituals for healing, of positive fire to the soul, and the strong Roman weed that brought solace to the spirit, beneath the heavy yoke of oppression, depravity, and tears from constant defilements of the people. Yet I'm a fish, taught to live in slothfulness and indolence, as I struggle with complacency and iniquity, too weak to free myself from this dark web of sorrow and despair. I use my soul, trying to scan my mother's tales like an X-ray machine, looking for answers in order to remember my true self. I once swam in stunning reefs beneath the waves, specks of red, orange, and bright blue-green corals glimmering within a seabed of aquamarine waters, while I banqueted with oysters and pearls on the ocean's flow. It was here I first felt peace as the source of supernal splendor, knew that to love was happier than in being loved. Come, my beloved, grant me not a lighter burden, but a much stronger heart. Come.
Amen. Look, time is running against us. Before the last poem, how can people see you or hear you during this whole Black History Month? Are you performing anywhere? Is there anything online we can connect to?
I would probably be performing live tonight. I did some Black History pieces in a group called Mind Over Matter just recently. So I'm very active. Maybe 4 or 5 times a week I do live performances. Then I've done one piece with the Indian host on Zoom. I use Zoom a lot myself. So
and how can people connect with you? How can they connect with you?
Manatita Hutchinson on Instagram and Facebook. Manatita Hutchinson on Instagram and Facebook. I also have a blog, but it's trickier to find.
We'll post all those details as always. Can I just say, Lantern Carrier, thank you so much for being on the show. I want you to perform an interesting tale as your last poem for us. Tell us all about it and then let's hear it. And thank you for taking over on this Black History Month special for us today. As always, just dropping gold, dropping gold, dropping gold.
Bethe is one of my 4 works of artistic commissions. The poet Jos Perth, who passed not so long ago, very, very famous for painting poems about Black history, particularly American history. And that particular painting is called Bethe. It shows a Black woman covering herself and an elderly mother a woman sitting next to her, which presumably could be her mother, and in the times of what it would have looked like in the times of slavery.
Okay, take it away because the time's running out.
Duplicity and self-interest have been around since Adam and Eve embraced indignity in the Garden of Eden. Hypocrisy and deceit have never been known to leave room for altruism, but to grip the callous like a vice caught in the needle of their addictions. Looting a shop from deep-seated pain, however morally or criminally unjust, cannot compare with the ill-gotten spoils from Africa, in which 30 million died across the Middle Passage, packed like sardines on overcrowded ships. Woe, man, you took my liberty in the pursuit of happiness, replacing them with shackles and chains, justifying your greed and self-centeredness, while my ancestors bled and the wounds ran red from their spirit. We are in a crucible of systemic fire, of viral, social, economic, and racial pandemics. Plundering at its finest worst is no stranger to the trading of humans, leaving no voice for the dispossessed, enslaved not only for monetary gains, but the dehumanization of kindred spirits. Yet you look at the looting of shops, conveniently forgetting those who are literally stripped naked of their dignity and self-esteem, forgetting the piracy of a historical past, the pillaging of crown jewels and natural resources taken from foreign lands, still weeping from the ails of poverty and injustice. Meanwhile, I bathe, striving to cleanse my heart of the scars inflicted by stolen dreams in centuries of enslavement. Hair wrapped in the Duku Gele tradition of my ancestors, I gaze upwards to heaven, praying for the glimmer of dawn. The gray mist of shadows haunt me. I wrap my nakedness in the color of blue, longing for the light of the unknowable. I bathe so that the wails of my ancestors would pave the way for the forgiveness of the oppressors. I bathe so that when they come to the judgment, or toil and struggle would balance the scales of the pendulums, act as the merits before God. I bathe as my mother wills from both current and ancient memories, sitting beside me, she too is caught in the red threads of despair and desolation, singing the songs of freedom in her soul. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home, steal away to Jesus. This has been the Lantern Carrier. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Follow Trevor now on Instagram @OfficialTBN Show.